Thank you for joining us on Well Balanced, the Vector Wealth podcast. Today in the studio, we've got Chris Wagner. He's an advisor at Vector Wealth.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be on again.
This will be fun. We've got a premise. I'll lay that out, and then we'll kind of roll through the details. The premise is this: for not a lot of money, $300, you could make your life a little bit better. People liked air fryers. Mm-hmm. That's it's kind of like a pizza oven, but you can do all sorts of things with it. Other one would be like a pair of headphones. Maybe the AirPods or something nice like that. And then maybe an e-reader, a Kindle, that kind of a thing. Yep. So these are all around, $150 to $300. Chris, you had one about a flight you thought of?
Yeah, I thought of just spending $300 to upgrade from business class or from economy up to business class or first class, and how that would make a big difference in my life, spending that $300.
Yeah. So it's like, what are those small things that if you had some money and you weren't too concerned about it, you'd feel better, right? So if money was no object, obviously it's an object to a certain degree, but would that flight be more comfortable when you got to the other side?
I think this is a great subject because so many times when we meet with clients and we go through their plans, we usually get to the end of the plan and we say, does this plan work and are your assets projected to outlive you? And majority of the time they do. And a majority of the time we have these conversations with clients of, that's a lot of money, or you have room to spend more money. And so I can't spend the money for you. Only you can do that. But we can generate some ideas and some thoughts around what to spend. And I think the $300 is perfect because maybe your plan's a little bit tighter, but if there's $300 that you can afford to spend on something that's going to make your life better, that's something that we as an advisor should bring up and say, hey, treat yourself to those headphones if they're going to make your life better, because you're doing work that involves having headphones in all day, and having the best sound quality makes a lot of sense. And so I think this can touch all areas of whether you have $500,000 or $5 million. I think this really applies to all people.
For the types of clients we have that may be, in retirement, approaching retirement, in retirement, or a few years, 10 years beyond, I think about their parents, right? And they may have lived through, or they themselves lived through some harder times where saving was really the thing to do. Work hard, save money. There's probably a little bit of, Depression era stuff that's kind of lingering from, maybe the generation previous, right? So an idea of a certain scarcity and thriftiness, which are all really good qualities. And it's probably what's gotten many clients to this point here.
Exactly. A lot of them live well within their means, and that's why they are set up for a very successful retirement. And the hardest part is when you're working, you're in saver mode and survivor mode. So you're you have a budget, or maybe you just have a loose, here's how much we get each month and here's how much we have to spend. But you're really looking at surviving and getting through each year up until retirement. You're looking to build emergency funds, you're looking to pay down debt, and you're also looking to set aside money for retirement. And so then you get to this moment of retirement. It's a big celebration. It's like, I have all this stuff, all this money I saved up. What do I do with it? And how do I get comfortable spending it? And that's a really hard thing to do. Savers are always going to be savers. Spenders are going to be spenders. And a lot of people are savers and get to this point. And so it's a matter of, there is no magic button that we can hit and say, your plan looks great, you have way too much money, go ahead and spend. And most people aren't going to do that. And so it's a matter of getting comfortable with the plan, making sure you completely understand it, and maybe work with your advisor to stress test it to even give you some more comfort around it. And then the other thing is to maybe see, like, if you do want to start traveling and you're afraid to spend that money on travel, maybe build it into the plan, see what it looks like, if that gives you comfort. If not, just try it for 1 year. You go out and spend $10,000 on a trip, see how it makes you feel. If you thought, oh man, that's amazing, I'd like to do that more, let's start to work this in, then you start to get comfortable with those different types of decisions. But until you make that decision, until you start to try it, you're never going to know.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Just start small, see how it goes. You can always kind of evaluate after each one, right?
Correct.
So if you upgrade to first class, you can ask, was that worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
did you arrive to your destination just feeling a little bit more relaxed?
Or did you arrive to your destination feeling stressed out because of all the money you spent on it? And that's where you try. If you try it, and if it just doesn't do enough for you, then you don't have to do it again, and maybe you find something else that you can spend your money on.
Yeah.
While we're on this point, it's when we're looking at client plans, we see a lot of times that they're projected to leave a lot of money to the next generation, their children, or if they don't have children, to charity or to brothers and sisters, things like that. And the question I like to ask clients or present to clients is that this is your money that you worked hard for. And so you should spend the money because you worked for it. And if you're not going to spend it, somebody else is going to spend it when you pass away. And so where is the balance of you getting joy out of the money you worked really hard for versus being afraid to spend the money and leaving too much to the next generation or to charity and things like that?
Yeah, yesterday you had brought up the example of that you said in your plan that you wanted to give your kids X dollars, and your plan allows for it. Your plan also allows for you to spend money today. And so by being really thrifty and sort of tight with the money now, you're leaving more to your kids, and you've indicated that was not, you kind of have already crossed that off your list. Like you've accounted for that.
Yep.
And so there's no, like you say, there's no reason not to.
Correct. Besides the fear of running out of money, right? That's probably the biggest thing we come about is, do I have enough? And how I know your plan says everything, but it's hard to do it, right? To put it into motion if you're a saver, to see the balance start to go down, even though that's by design within your plan. And so it's really a matter of, in my opinion, I think the best thing to do is start small. And I think $300 is perfect. Treat yourself to something for $300 that you normally wouldn't do and see how it makes you feel. A lot of our clients have done a great job building wealth, and I think in retirement you should be able to be comfortable. And so what dollar amount or what thing can you spend your money on to be comfortable? The upgrading to first class, that makes the flight more comfortable for you, and maybe won't $300 expense or a $500 upgrade or a $1,000 upgrade isn't going to materially impact your plan. So why not try that and spend it? Same with an air fryer. If that's going to make your food crispier and better and it helps reheating French fries or things like that, then do it. Yeah. And so I think these are conversations that clients need to really look at their lives and say, am I going without? And is there something that I can add value or something that's going to make life more comfortable? And then once you start to do that, you get to see that, hey, I am spending a little extra money and my plan is still very strong. That's when you can really start to say, well, let's try travel, or this bigger expense, this new car versus buying a used car, and little things like that. And then the snowball effect of you being able to make these decisions, spend more money, starts to happen. Yeah,
I think about just going out to eat, right? If maybe you don't get that nicer glass of wine or that, that fancy cocktail, or, you get the salad instead of the steak.
Yep.
Whatever, people have food preferences, of course. The other one I think that you brought up is like spenders and savers. And I wonder, in the same household, you might have one of each or different combinations. She might be a saver, he might be a spender, or vice versa.
Yep.
How do you work those? How do you work that out in your meetings?
It's very common. There usually is either someone who made a lot of the money and saved it, and then their spouse had to manage the household and then also made sure they stayed within the budget. Yeah. And then there's the other couple where one of them is a spender, one's a saver, or they both like to spend, but they do it within reason. And when there's one spender and one saver, the biggest thing is to reassure them, both of them, that based on their plan, if it shows stability, they have the ability to spend. So there shouldn't be any, well, he spends all the money or she spends all the money. It's if he or she wants to spend the money, then they can. Yeah. And it's not going to impact your plan. If that brings them joy, then I think they should do it.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that you see with couples is, no, we can't spend that. You can't spend that money, or I worked for this money. We need to spend it on things that only benefit us. I think that's a relationship thing. They got to work out. But as advisors, our job is to make sure they know if one wants to spend some extra money, they can do it. Right. And we have to work we look at it as a household, not just
one or the other. Yeah. So try to find.
But it's very common for one to be a saver, one to be a spender. With most of our clients, it's very common for both to be savers too.
You had shared an example the other day, which was one of the clients that you have wanted to get a nicer car, and so a couple of years prior, you said, "Okay, we're going to set this aside. We're going to set the money for this car aside." It came time to get the car, and were they having doubts about it, or how did that work out?
Yeah. So with Sojourn, if there's these expenses that we want to spend on, so a new car, larger travel budget for the first 10 years of retirement, any other items that fall into that gifting to kids, things like that. And I can give more examples of how people can spend their money in retirement and things to consider talking about with their advisor. But as part of the Sojourn plan, we can build in, hey, I want a new car in 3 years. Well, let's put it into the plan. You want a $35,000 car. We set that aside. Markets have volatility like they have this year, as we've all seen. That money's set aside in assured income. It's still positive, flat on the year, not going down, not something that we have to worry about the markets going on. And I think this year's a prime example of that is this client went and found this car and then said, well, should we buy it now? The markets are volatile. I'm kind of concerned about taking money out. And the answer is, we set this aside years ago for this. And we got here, this money is actually positive this year, not really being impacted by what's going on in the stock market. One of the reasons why we do what we do is setting that assured income bucket for this type of thing. And so I'm glad you found the car. We're going to send you the money, buy the car.
Yeah.
Thanks for setting it aside when you did, and it allowed them to buy it stress-free, not even have to worry about selling when the market's down. And so I think these ideas that come about, Sojourn's a great tool for us to start to model them. I mean, you can see the first 10 years of retirement are going to be your best years. One, because you're the youngest you are. And two, you worked your tail off. Why not enjoy it right after retirement? And so a lot of times we can build in a larger travel budget in the first 10 years, a larger car budget, one-time big anniversary trip, things like that in those first 10 years. And then we can review it with you and say, how does the plan look? Here's what it looked like before. Here's what it looked like after. And really, it still looks extremely stable with a lot of conservative assumptions. And so, yeah, let's make it happen. Find a travel agent, start booking these trips. And our job, we want to see you enjoy this money. And if you're not spending money because you're afraid you're going to run out, then we aren't doing a good enough job going through your plan and or your other advisor or any advisor is not doing a good enough job letting you know how much flexibility you have to spend this money.
Yeah, you had another example of kind of starting small and kind of working your way up to this, these larger spends. You'd shared that a person spends so much time in their home, and these little home remodel projects. There are all sorts of these, right? But to start small.
Yeah. I think if there's a fear around spending money, whether it's a little thing or a big thing, I think the best thing to do is start small. And so in the example of clients I work with who want to update their home, you spend the most time in your home, like we mentioned. Maybe the remodel projects are, I want to remodel my kitchen, remodel my family room and my master bathroom. Well, start with your master bathroom. It's probably the smaller project, the most economical project of the three. Spend the money and see how that changes your life. Does it feel better to have a walk-in shower versus the old step-in shower? Does the nicer sink make you feel better in the morning when you wake up? And also just get the feeling of, okay, this money is now gone. It's out of my investment account. I can't see it anymore. How do I feel? And then I think and how does the plan look? Okay, it barely changed. Great. So that just kind of gets the ball rolling. And then you see, I hated having my house torn apart, but I really love the final product. I'm going to do my kitchen next. And that's a more expensive project, but at least you kind of got the ball rolling to see how you like it. And In the case, other smaller example is try first class. If you are told you can spend more money, try first class. If you don't like it, great. You don't have to fly first class next time, but you tried it, and maybe that's not the thing you decide to spend your money on. Maybe it's more a nicer hotel that has more perks, things like that. And so that's something that you can try and figure out, but I think modeling those expenses and trying to start small is a great way to get into spending more money on the things that really add value to your retirement and your life.
We are saying that it's okay to spend money, and it might actually be kind of foreign to like where to even start looking.
Yeah.
You know, some of the categories that you had shared earlier were legacy and giving, experiences, comfort, and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe touch on some of those and how those can be ways that people can explore spending that money that they've worked so hard for.
So a lot of clients, they are spending enough money and feel like life is great. And that's where we come back to that point where I said, you know, you worked hard for this money. If there's some little thing like a legacy, purpose, or comfort, then that's something maybe you didn't think of. And so in terms of legacy, two ways to look at it is one, if you don't spend these assets, they're going to pass on to your next generation. You're going to leave a nice legacy to your kids, to a charity, to any organization. That's great. But you don't get to see the benefits of all that. You just kind of lived your life and you pass away leaving this large sum, and people are going to be thrilled. But there's a way to do it while you're alive. I mean, you could set up an education fund for your kids or a scholarship fund for somebody through your university. You can set up a donor advised fund it for charitable giving, and give to these charities over multiple years. And also either add your kids to the account so they are part of the process, or leave the fund to your kids and then you created this long-term charitable fund. The other thing is we kind of hit on comfort, is making your life comfortable, whether that's flying first class, buying a luxury car that's a little bit more expensive than the other car you would have purchased because it's got nicer seats or more bells and whistles, and that's going to make your daily driving that much more comfortable. Upgrading your house, different things like that add comfort to your life. Mm-hmm. The experiences, obviously, I think once you retire, make a bucket list and where you want to travel, what you want to travel, where you want to travel, what you want to do, different things like that, and then put them all down and then figure out when the best time to do that is, whether it's right away after retirement or maybe you space them out. And then as mention it to your advisor, and then you can start to plan for those and costs like that. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is just personal benefit. And that's more like maybe you want to spend money on a cooking class. You want to learn how to become a really good cook. And so you go and take cooking classes. Or there's always been this passion project you want to do. So you start an LLC and you start doing woodworking and you sell it at the local farmer's market. Different things like that. People don't like, that's a great way to spend your money. It's something that you're passionate about, that you start to spend a lot of money on, and maybe it brings in some income, or also just keeps you busy, makes you feel good. You're building some woodwork that maybe your kids can have or that somebody else can have. And so those are just some ideas of how do you spend this money. And the last thing, similar to legacy and giving, is just kids and grandkids. Is, like I said, if you don't spend it, they're going to spend it. And maybe they're going to be set and you're going to leave them X number of dollars and great, they're set. But will they benefit from that money more when they're 75 to 80 years old when you pass away? Or would it be more enjoyable for you to see them enjoy those gifts while you're alive and while they may need it more in these years of helping get through daycare expenses, pay off student loans, maybe build these add-ons to their house or do remodels to their house? And so I think helping kids out is a great way to, one, you get to experience them using the money that you helped them out with. And then two, you also can help set up education funds for grandkids or great grandkids and really create a legacy while you're alive that you get to see and experience, versus just leaving a larger legacy when you're gone.
I love that. The idea of that confidence in spending builds over time. I think that's sort of an interesting, we have that in our notes here, that you kind of, you put a toe in, like you say, and you try, you try getting a little bit out of that comfort zone. I think we're especially speaking to those people who have been such savers for so long, for 30 years, just, they get a raise, they put it right back into their investment portfolio. Mm-hmm. They've been modest and frugal. Let's, as we kind of wrap up here, let's talk a little bit about kind of the scenario modeling. And partly this is just how does all this work, right? We can kind of get into the lofty ideas or the hypotheticals of what would you do if you had more money to spend, mm-hmm. and could you spend it? Psychologically, could you do it? But the way to know is to model it out, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe just talk a little bit through someone who's maybe not familiar with Sojourn. How would you model that out, or what goes into figuring that out?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think Sojourn does a terrific job allowing us to model this really efficiently and really answers the question right away. And so whether you send an email saying, hey, we're thinking about these budget line items, can you put those into the plan and just tell us, does it still work or not? Or we're sitting down in a meeting and we're like, hey, you have a really strong plan. Let me just spend some more money for you. Let's assume your travel budget goes from $10K a year to $15K a year, and how does that impact the plan? So Sojourn gives us the flexibility to do that really quickly, but a lot of times it's in a client meeting, we review the plan, and if the plan shows significant stability or financial flexibility, as we'll say sometimes, then it's like, well, is there something in the next 3 years that you want to do? Are you traveling, gifting, giving, things like that? And maybe they are thinking about it, and we'll say, well, let's model that. And we'll put it into the plan and just see how the numbers work, and then have the conversation. If you really want to do this, let's plan on it. Having those conversations really, really helps. And then another way we can do it, so that's just truly modeling. The other thing we've done for some clients is, your plan looks great. If you wanted to, here's how much additional money you could spend on whatever you want each year, and still we feel good about the plan. And that gives you the idea of, okay, each year if I spend an extra $10,000, well, Vector told me that's really not going to impact overall plan. I can spend that on whatever I want if I want to. If I don't, my plan just looks that much better. But now you know, okay, it's either $10,000 a year or $500 a year or $1,000 a year, but you have that parameter in your mind, and then you know, okay, great, I have some cushion, and maybe I will spend some extra money this year, maybe not next year. And I think that also just helps kind of say, okay, now I know I have extra money. Maybe I don't spend all $10,000 each year, but at least I know I can if I want to. And then revisiting that every year to make sure, yeah, that's still the case. I think having annual or semi-annual review meetings to confirm all of these assumptions, whether the markets are good or bad, I think really helps reassure clients to want to get them to spend more, knowing, wow, it's just the plan still looks great. I can't break this plan.
And then the other part is emotionally or psychologically being able to actually do that. Yeah. To spend those dollars, and like you say, start small. If that's something that, yes, your plan works, then go out. And what was it? The Ninja Creamy, the new ice cream maker. Yeah. I think it's at Costco for under $200. So.
Yeah. Make yourself some ice cream. Yeah. It's the planning part of it and showing you that the numbers work. That's the easiest part. Mm-hmm. And you saving all this money to get there, hard part.
The hard part.
And now we're at the easy part of things look great. The hardest part is that mental shift to go from a saver to a spender. And we're not pounding the table right now to say, you got to shift, you got to start spending more money. We just want with clients to start thinking of what can they spend their money on that's going to add value to their life, whether big or small. And I think that's the most important part. And I don't think we're ever going to shift anyone from a saver to a spender, but I want people to start thinking of, if they are a saver, what little things can I do or big things can I do that may add value to my day-to-day life or experiences or help my kids out, things like that. And then have those conversations with your advisor. Kind of get the ball rolling is what we want to do.
I think that's a great place to close out. Certainly, if people have questions about this, they can reach out to you or any other advisors at Vector. If they don't have one, obviously, give us a call for that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all ready to talk and always willing to help clients make sure they get today right. And so that's the most important.
Well said. Thank you, Chris.
All right, thanks.
Hey, thanks for listening to our podcast. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment